Good morning. Today I want to talk a little bit about vulnerability, and this is kind of a vulnerable thing to do, right? So sharing something from the heart, something that makes me uncomfortable, which doing these videos has that effect as well, because in that process we have our own self-criticism that comes up. While I talk about this idea of non-duality, I say that there's no separation between the self and other. Part of that leads into this feeling of vulnerability because I am meeting my judgments, my own self-criticisms through my thought about what I think you think about me. So in a way, by being vulnerable, by failing, by going through these processes, is that we start to build a level of confidence in the self with what we're saying, what we're doing, maybe learning something new and applying it and seeing the results and continuing to go forward with that. And so being vulnerable is very important because it breaks down that barrier of what seems to be the other person. And when I cross that threshold, when I become vulnerable and then I get feedback from you, what occurs is that I notice that my self-criticisms, either they become very apparent by direct feedback from the world, but usually what happens is the world doesn't support that direct criticism when I'm really looking at it, when I realize that it is not based in the fundamental truth of who I am. So being vulnerable is an incredibly important aspect of life that helps to bring things together. So it'll bridge that gap between you and me. And that is a much more meaningful occurrence than, say, the basketball score or something like that. I think oftentimes we are afraid to be vulnerable. I know that I am. It's hard for me to share stuff, but then it's also because then I have to admit stuff as well, right? So if I'm going to share something, I have to admit something that I consider a weakness or a flaw or a fault. And once I do that, though, I have to look at it and say, is that really true? And I realize that it's not. It's not true to who I know myself to be. It might be true in the moment as far as what I'm experiencing through my judgments of where I think I should be, who I think I should be. But it's not true based on the fundamental feeling of who I know myself to be. So be vulnerable, practice it and test it out. These videos are a way for me to do that as well, and then through teaching is how we learn as well. And so I'm going to be teaching about forgiveness, be teaching about non-duality, which seems odd because at the same sense that's one of the things that I have to learn is this in this life is forgiveness. And non-duality, I've had my experience of recognizing that none of this actually exists, but then I'm experiencing existing as well. So it's sort of this conundrum, and part of the teaching is a way to work through that. And as I continue that, you should see that it benefits the world because I learned to forgive everything in the world, and you will see along with me that it starts to condense and become one. So enjoy your day so much.